Hello, welcome back to another preview podcast with the Transfer Portal CFB presented by NoContextCFB. Somehow, someway, week 13. How? Like, this season literally started yesterday. It feels like we were watching Vanderbilt do incredible things in week 0, and now we're watching Vanderbilt do even more incredible things. Sorry, Florida, Tennessee, possibly up next. I ain't saying it, but look, we're here to break down week 13. We've got a dang good guest this week, national college football writer for CBS Sports. He's so good at what he does. Shehan Jeyarajah, it's very nice to have you on with us today.
Yeah, it's always great to be on with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Always a blast talking some college football with you. We've also got Drewster and Dylan with me. And you know what? We can just get straight into this, right? We got to talk college football rivalries. The rivalry week. There's so much that we've got to discuss, but like, just straight up, your opinion, like, what rivalries in college football need to be played annually? Because we're going to see some of them possibly get broken up. So, like, Bedlam can't really go away, right?
Yeah, that's a brutal one. And I'm going to start with one that obviously was played for a long time right in my backyard in the state of Texas, and that's Texas versus Texas A&M. We need to bring it back. I don't love all of the realignment that's happened over the past 2 years, but that's the one good part, is that we're finally going to get that game back. You know, it's just one of those rivalries that obviously spans an entire state. You have to pick a side. I mean, I grew up in the 2000s in the state of Texas in DFW. And look, the reality is, right, I mean, you were either an Aggie or you were a Longhorn. It didn't matter whether you had any ties. It didn't matter. And so I'm glad we're going to get that one back. That was obviously such a great Thanksgiving game. And no, I think that these in-state rivalries for major college football states like Oklahoma, like Alabama, like Mississippi, you know, the Egg Bowl, I think, is one of the most underrated rivalries in all of college football. That's what it's all about, right? It's all about two programs in the same state that where the fans live on top of each other, just getting to hating. And I'm excited to have that one back, and I'm really disappointed that we're losing Bedlam in the process.
Brutal.
Yeah. Speaking of hate, you know who else hates each other? West Virginia and Pitt. We got a little taste of it this year with the backyard brawl in week 1. That was such an electric atmosphere in Pittsburgh. We need that back. I don't care that one's in the ACC and one's in the Big 12. It's too great of a rivalry, too fun of a rivalry. Even if you're not a part of it, it's just fun to watch everybody hate each other. I love West Virginia Pitt. It's just one of those rivalries where it's like, we get it every few years and we get that taste, but it's like, it could be so much more, I feel like, in the national media. Like, we have the Michigan Ohio States, we have the Alabama Auburns, we have the Egg Bowl and its standalone day. I feel like West Virginia Pitt, there's so much in it, even though those aren't like two national powers. We could be getting a rivalry that's like, okay, this is a must watch every year.
I'm with that game being played opening Monday night every year.
I would also be a fan of that.
Absolutely. I wrote down West Virginia Pitt as well because this year it had so much hype, and knowing the two programs are where they at, obviously Pitt had the anomaly year last year. At least it appears to be an anomaly year. But the two programs don't really have that national hype over the last, 11 years since that game was last played. And that had a lot of hype going into that game, and it deserves it. And, listening to those two teams and those two coaches and players, talk about that rivalry and the hatred that they have for each other, they still understand it, even though it had been almost a dozen years since they'd played. I mean, I don't think you can really bring back a lot of the old rivalries that were broken up by conference realignment. Texas and Texas A&M is definitely one that would still have that hype, but like Kansas, Missouri probably won't get that anymore. Oklahoma, Nebraska came back. Nobody really cared. So, I mean, there's something special about the backyard brawl and the hatred between those two programs. And I definitely think it should be, like a standalone game on a weekday, like a Thursday or a Monday every year.
Well, and one other one, because I think that's what we have to look at more than anything, too, especially with a program like West Virginia, is realignments ruined all of their rivalries, really. I mean, obviously they've played Penn State historically, they've played Pitt historically, obviously the Virginia schools they've played historically, and they don't play any of those schools consistently anymore. One program that I think has really struggled without having a true rival is Nebraska. I would like to see a little bit more of that Oklahoma-Nebraska rivalry. Obviously, going to different conferences are going to be SEC and Big Ten heading forward, but I mean, Nebraska has, it's just not the same, right? Playing against some of those Big Ten West opponents that they have no history with. And Oklahoma and Nebraska, obviously, historically is such a significant rivalry. It's just, I'll tell you what, I feel like I have this conversation with Missouri people who I know too. Not having a rivalry and not having ties is just one of the worst things in college football because it makes, like, if you are not a national championship program, then all you care about is making your rival miserable, right? Like, I'll tell you what, I went to Baylor, right? Last week, they played TCU. They had a chance to ruin their entire season, just like TCU did the year before that when they kept them out of the playoff. Nothing else matters, right? A season can be successful just because you win that kind of game. And I think that for a program like Nebraska, for a program right now like West Virginia, to not have those kinds of games, Missouri would be another one that I'd add to the list. To not have those games, I think just absolutely sucks.
Oddly enough, the two I came prepared with, Missouri, Illinois, I want to see the arch rivalry back. And West Virginia is 12-0 all-time against Marshall. Bring the Friends of Coble back. What an elite name. That's a fun rivalry. West Virginia might as well just play their entire non-conference filled with rivalry games for all I care.
They try their best.
Us hyped up for I don't know. Like, what else is there? The Keg of Nails. That one is fun. That's what? Louisville Cincy. What else is there?
I'll add another one. You can ignore the or in the back. Minnesota, Michigan has one of the best trophies in the country, and it's one of the most historic. I'll just
unbiased.
I mean, unbiased. The Little Brown Jug is historic.
A smile on your face. Like, come on, you get paid to say it. It's a hashtag ad.
Hashtag.
I love how the Big Ten tries to make everything a trophy game, right? Sometimes it doesn't hit, but I love just like the dumbest things like that, having a jug, the bits of broken chair, like all this sort of like hilarious stuff. I love all of it, and I think that's something that one thing I'm going to be curious about is, for example, we get a new Big 12, we'll get some realignment of the Pac-12. Obviously, the SEC, Big Ten, it's going to be a little different. I do wonder if trying to cultivate some of those rivalries is going to be a big part heading forward. Because, I'll tell you what, again, being in Big 12 country, I think that failing to take advantage of some of those opportunities has really been an existential issue, right? Baylor TCU should be one of the biggest games in college football every single year, right? And especially heading forward, maybe it will be. Texas Tech Houston, I think heading forward could be. Cincinnati, West Virginia, that's one that finally has some regional ties. So I think it's going to be huge for those programs if they're able to kind of take advantage of some of those opportunities and try to build something long term with some real stakes.
Definitely. And as we just look ahead to this week, Thursday, Thanksgiving, Egg Bowl, synonymous with playing on Thanksgiving. You also have the NFL. You have some college basketball. World Cup, I think, is in Thanksgiving this year, like out of nowhere. There's so much happening on Thanksgiving, but we're a college football podcast. We've got to find a way to get one more college football game on Thanksgiving. What's that one game you're rolling with?
I hate to go back to the same well, but man, Texas Tech A&M, get it back on Thanksgiving. It's a great game.
After you finish watching Ole Miss and Mississippi State play, you're probably about to fall into that Thanksgiving food coma. How about you fall asleep to some Pac-12 football with the Apple Cup?
I hate you.
Washington.
How you hate it?
Man, I thought I had that one down. I thought that one was mine.
Oh, no, you got to remember, Washington State's one of my favorite rivalries I'm not a part of. I freaking love the Apple Cup, Washington State. It doesn't matter how good Washington is. Doesn't matter how good Washington State is. Either team can win that game in any given year, especially this year. It's going to be a very fun game this year. Just let me fall asleep to some Michael Penix and Cam Ward action.
All right. Well, you didn't take my reasoning for it. It's the apple cup while you're eating apple pie after dinner. That's the reason why I would want it. I mean, that's a Thanksgiving meal right there. Is some FS1 9 p.m. Eastern Petros Papadakis action. Like, come on, man. That's perfect. But you hit it right on the head. UW and Wazoo. It doesn't matter if they're both 4-7 coming into the game or undefeated. Like this rivalry, they hate each other. Living in Washington for most of my life, I can tell you they absolutely despise each other. Not quite like Washington and Oregon, I don't think, which is one that's really built up over the last, 20 years or so, 25 years or so. But Washington and Washington State especially is going to have higher stakes because, Washington can get that Rose Bowl if they get into the Pac-12 championship and knock off USC. Wazoo could kick them out of that potentially. Of course, going off of what Oregon does with Oregon State as well. So I mean, in New Washington last year, they lost for the first time at home to Wazoo in 15 years, and Wazoo planted the flag at midfield. So there's definitely going to be some added stakes for UW in this game for sure.
Man, I love that we all came here thinking we absolutely nailed this. And I think I nailed it. I also went with Pac-12 After Dark. I went with the 7:30 p.m. Pacific kickoff for Oregon State. Let's play the Egg Bowl, and then let's get into the Oregon State rivalry right after. There's no slowing down with the hatred. You're consuming all this great elite rivalry football. And yeah, I don't know, like give Oregon State a bigger platform, I guess, in a way, so that, more casual fans that just want to watch some Thanksgiving football will watch it instead of the snooze fest that's going on in the National Football League. Oregon State's a really dang fun game. And I mean, Dylan can speak to it. That game is incredible.
It kind of gets swept under the rug with so many other historic rivalries going on that Saturday. So I feel like if it was a Friday game annually, I think it might even get more, attention. But Thursday, I think, is definitely a great slot for it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We should now tell the scheduling people yo, us four, we figured it out. We cracked the code. We know what's up. Let's move on to true week 13 stuff. Best or most interesting storyline?
Well, I think that heading into this final week, my eyes are really going to be on USC. I want to see if what happened last week is the start of something. The way that USC schedule works itself out, this is such a showcase, not just for USC, not just for Lincoln Riley, but I think for Caleb Williams as well. This is an opportunity for him to, I think, put his stamp on the Heisman conversation. And last week, obviously, he threw for 470 yards in a win over UCLA and set up a bunch of touchdowns in a 48-45 win. And he took over as the Heisman favorite. So heading into these last 2 weeks, they get Notre Dame this week, a very good defense. And by the way, I think that one thing that could help him out a lot is this Notre Dame team really kind of held CJ Stroud in check in that first game, and that's going to be probably his top competition for the Heisman Trophy. But I think that also, then you go and play potentially Oregon in the title game. That's going to be huge for them as well. But I am bearing the lead a little bit. Obviously, it's going to be the game. It's going to be Ohio State versus Michigan. I don't have a good feel for what to expect from this game. We haven't really seen either of these two teams play elite competition at any point this year. And I would kind of argue that neither of them have been pushed off of their plan A. Obviously, Ohio State, they're great receivers, they're great quarterback, and Michigan, nobody's really been able to make them struggle running the ball until Blake Corum went out last week, and it didn't look all that good. So I'm curious to see. I don't have a good feel for this game. I don't know for either team if enough has changed from last season to change what happened. It's going to be, I think, a great game, and I don't really have a good feel of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't either. This is one of the weirdest games, and I mean the game, in quite some time, because usually we have a dominant Ohio State team. I don't think this Ohio State team's dominant. They have their holes. Their defense looks better than it was last year. I'm not going to say it's very good. Their secondary especially looks pretty weak. And you talked about without Corum, Michigan struggled last week. It came down to a last-minute drive with J.J. McCarthy to get them into field goal range to beat Illinois. An Illinois team that's kind of struggled over the last few weeks after starting, 7-0. I don't know where this game could end up like last year if, Blake Corum is good. I don't know the injury status of him, Or it could be one of those common, Ohio State wins like 59, 35, but it could also be just an all-out war. That's one of the beauties of this. One of the best games in this sport. We have no freaking clue what to expect. So anything on Saturday is going to surprise us in the most beautiful way possible. It could be, Michigan wins his game back-to-back. Jim Harbaugh stamps his legacy in Michigan. Or Ryan Day's like, you know what, Michigan, last year was fun for y'all. I'm glad y'all had your moment. Reminder who Papa is.
Reminder who Papa is.
No context CFB clip right there. I think for me, the one thing that's super interesting is this week 13 slate where we get to watch the battle for bowl eligibility, right? That's going to be a fun one this year. I think there's 17 teams that are one win away from clinching bowl eligibility. And if you told me last season that teams like Miami, Michigan State, App State, and Louisiana would be one win away from bowl eligibility, I would have thought you were insane. App State has 6 wins, but they have 2 wins over FCS teams, so they got to get that 7th win in order to get there. But man, I mean, Miami and Michigan State, they kind of fell off. I shouldn't say Miami fell off, but they had high expectations and have completely fallen short. So that's just a really interesting one because I would imagine that, those 4 teams that I mentioned would be fighting for like an 8th or 9th win by this point in the season. But and then also you have to watch for, this could be the last hurrah for some head coaches who are going to get fired and move on to different things before the coaching carousel kicks off. And it's already starting to. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it here momentarily, but the whole Lane Kiffin Auburn stuff, and now there's talks about Deion Sanders and Kenny Dillingham. So it's already starting to heat up, and we're going to see maybe some auditions for some head coaches moving on.
Yeah, speaking of the carousel really starting to begin, I went with a bit of a last audition here. I went with Cadillac Williams, and I was prepared to say this before the Lane Kiffin Auburn smoke really started to rise, but Cadillac Williams, if Auburn were to go out there and somehow, some way take down Nick Saban in Alabama, how do you not seriously consider, well, you're going to have the entire Auburn fan base pending the Kiffin stuff would probably want Cadillac to stay because he was able to take down Alabama. And as we've said many times in this, 20 minutes so far, some teams beating that rival when you're down bad, like Auburn has been all year, being that rival is everything. Like, that is everything. And hey, if the Kiffin stuff is really cooking, that's cool. Make it happen, Auburn. I ain't against it. But Cadillac will begin HC gigs at he began offers from other schools because he's done a fine job in his first year, really taking over at Auburn in what was, to put it nicely, a pretty awful situation. Like, Cadillac has done a very solid job, and I guess also we could just look at Lane Kiffin and John Sokoloff and the beef there. I think that's a fun storyline. Yeah, I don't know. Kiffin is a national treasure.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I feel like, especially after last year, if you're watching Brian Kelly at LSU or if you're watching Lincoln Riley at USC, I feel like we might be reaching a point where some of these programs like Auburn feel like they have to steal other sitting head coaches, right? I feel like we might be getting to that point. And, look, I think the other part of this too is that for Cadillac Williams, he's an alum. This was his first real sort of coaching job, being running backs coach at Auburn. I don't necessarily think he's going anywhere. I think that he would happily stay on under Lane Kiffin as running backs coach, maybe as an associate head coach as well. But, that would be my thing, right? Obviously, if they were to beat Alabama, I mean, he's already a legend at Auburn. Yeah. That would make him just even another level of legend at Auburn. But, I'm going to be curious for sure. And by the way, along with that, right, we're going to see interim coach situations with Brent Key at Georgia Tech playing against Georgia. Obviously, they're not going to win that game, but if they're competitive at all, right, I think that speaks highly. We've heard, obviously, that Jim Leonard is the favorite to get the Wisconsin job. Can they find a way to finish things up? Mickey Joseph at Nebraska, I think, has really done a nice job over the last couple of weeks. Now, maybe he's not truly a candidate, but maybe he is. It's hard to know. So it's been a really good interim coach here, and it'll be kind of interesting to figure out what happens down the stretch. And by the way, we're probably going to get some firm answers on some of these questions over this upcoming weekend as well. So it's going to be kind of fun to watch what happens there.
Now, just to speculate, let's just give short, quick answer. If you were Lane Kiffin, would you leave Ole Miss to take the Auburn job? Because I'm going yes, 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those jobs that you can win a national championship at Auburn. And what he's done at Ole Miss is unbelievable, but you just can't reach that level.
Yeah, the ceiling, he's already got to the ceiling essentially. Like there's not much else to do. Saban is getting near the end of his career. If Kiffin was in that Auburn spot, scary to think about. I know, Kiffin's looking at that. He knows what's up. Now we have to predict the 4 playoff teams, and it's boring. This is the lame stuff nobody cares about. FCS playoffs are starting this week. Talk about that. That's important, but let's predict the 4 playoff teams. The committee's going to get this right for sure.
No, I feel pretty good about where we're at from that perspective. I do think that there's kind of chalk right now, and I think it's the correct answers, and it's shaping up to be that way. Obviously, at number 1, you expect it's going to be Georgia. Number 2, the winner of Ohio State, Michigan, I think is a stone cold lock for that second spot. Number 3, right now, I think we're looking at TCU, and if USC can survive, I think that a 12-1 USC is a lock as the 4th team, especially after potentially beating 3 really good teams in back-to-back weeks. Now, obviously, if USC loses a game, if TCU loses a conference championship game, that could throw some chaos into things. If LSU were to beat Georgia somehow, obviously that would potentially shake up the field as well, because Georgia's a lock. Georgia's a total lock, but if LSU wins as a 2-loss SEC champion, I think they're in as well. So there's ways that things can get shaken up, but right now I think the correct answer is the 4 that I mentioned, and I do think that's what we're going to end up getting.
Yeah, I agree with you, Georgia, Ohio State, TCU, USC. I do want to bring up another team that you didn't bring up. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry that we have to talk about this team. Clemson's not out of it. Clemson, as bad as they are, I don't think they're a good team. If they're a 1-loss ACC title winner, if TCU loses to, I think it would be Kansas State in the Big 12 title game right now, if maybe USC slips up in the Pac-12 title game, or possibly they lose to Notre Dame, that's not out of the cards. Clemson would probably need 3 or 4 teams to lose, but they're in it, as sad as that is, because that is not a good team to watch. We always talk about one of the best things about the playoff is we're probably going to have less blowouts. We're going to have more closer games once we get these lower seeded teams. Clemson's a team that's going to get blown out. This team is not good. I'm not going to say they suck, but their offense is not fun.
But
imagine a Clemson Georgia game. That would be just an awful football game.
We remember it from last year. It was not fun to watch.
I mean, I was just hoping for like Clemson, Iowa in the Duke's Mayo Bowl or something.
No. Can I kick him from the call? Dylan, can you do that, please?
You've got a warning, pal. Well, I know where it's at. I know how to.
It's World Cup season. Yellow card. That's a yellow.
Yeah.
Sicko's committee paid for that, by the way, just so we're clear.
Well, you still got the yellow.
And Drewster, I think there's one team that you're forgetting in that scenario. If TCU loses or USC slips up, it's the loser of Michigan, Ohio State could also get in there as well. Which, I don't want to see a Michigan team if Corum is banged up in the playoff. I really don't. But if it's a really competitive game, a really close game, and Michigan falls short to Ohio State to me gets that 2. If TCU stays alive, I think they're a lock for the 3. And then if TCU, or I'm sorry, if obviously LSU is going to lose to Georgia in my scenario here, and then if USC slips up once or twice, I feel like Michigan probably gets that 4 spot, and then they're probably that team that everybody's just going to be like, oh, they're going to get blown out, whoever they play, because that would be against Georgia, 2nd year in a row. I don't feel like people really want to watch that again, especially with, Corum is still banged up. But that's my scenario that I'm predicting. I think USC will slip up once. I think Georgia will probably handle LSU in the SEC title game. So I think Michigan's going to slip in, and I don't think people are going to be too happy about that.
I definitely won't be.
Yeah, I will say, I feel like if Michigan loses that game, like, what is their case? They have
They
one
played a 2-game
win.
schedule, and they went 1-1.
Right. They'll have beaten nobody. They'll have one of the worst non-conference schedules that we've seen since the playoffs started. And again, so you'd be kind of saying, well, they didn't lose too bad in their one good game, right?
Their
and so
wins haven't been that convincing either.
No, I mean they've played, so they're the best team that they've played so far is Penn State, and they played really well against them. The second best team they've played so far is Illinois, and they should have lost that game. And then you'd be talking about a third game against a top 50 opponents, and they would have lost that game in this scenario. So I feel like if Michigan loses, they have no chance. If Ohio State loses, they have that win over Notre Dame. That would be a common opponent with Clemson. So I think that maybe that opens things up a little bit more, just because Notre Dame. Now, we can get into the conversation of what Notre Dame was then versus what they were at that point. But, I don't know if that's something that really they can take fully into consideration. I think Ohio State has slightly more of a chance, but I feel like Clemson, if they're a one-loss team, if they do beat North Carolina in the ACC championship game, I feel like they would be the team in. They would have one loss. They would have a conference championship bump. So I feel like it's very unlikely that we get the loser of the game into the playoff, but who knows? I've been wrong before. I was some schlub who thought in 2014 that Baylor would make the playoff, and so what do I know?
It just feels like a committee move to me, because like if USC loses and Michigan loses, I don't feel like they would put in a 2-loss USC over them, considering Georgia beats LSU as well. And then at the same time, like Clemson, to me, the loss to Notre Dame was enough for me to just kick them out based on that loss alone. And then some of the games that I think they should have lost, that Syracuse game, they should have lost. And then the win over North Carolina doesn't, to me, look as good as it would have if North Carolina had not fallen short and played its worst offensive game in over a year against Georgia Tech. So to me, it just feels like a committee thing. I don't really think it'll happen, but it just feels like that annual move that the committee makes where everybody just goes berserk.
All right, I'm gonna add in a little hypothetical question. Michigan loses close game to Ohio State. Do you put them in over, like, let's just say other teams, these are the only two teams that the committee has decided for the fourth team. One loss Michigan, close loss to Ohio State, or TCU loses in the Big 12 title game to Kansas State. I feel like you have to put TCU in. They have better wins.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing that I think you can point to if you're the committee is that the team that they lost to is a team that they've already beaten, right? So, like, I feel like it's a little bit of a wash. Like, hey, they got you this game. They got you this game. Now, the one thing is, like, the way that they've talked about it is having a conference championship is a big deal. And so that's what makes TCU, even if they had lost, if they flipped it, if they lost in the regular season to Kansas State and then beat them in the title game, it's no doubt, right? Zero doubt in my mind that TCU would get in over Michigan. I think TCU's schedule lines up better. I think they have better wins. I think that, again, they would only have lost to a team that they also beat earlier in the season. I feel like TCU would still get priority, but also, again, I mean, TCU was the 7th seed just a couple of weeks ago until some teams lost. So it feels like the committee doesn't look at them all that favorably and are kind of sliding them in because they feel like they have to. But, at the same time, if they feel like they have to, and if they feel like, okay, we've watched enough of this team to realize that they went through a regular season 12-0 against a Big 12 that doesn't have a team that really is below top 55 probably in the entire slate. I mean, that's a lot. You look at ESPN's strength of record right now, TCU's number 1 because of how difficult their schedule has been. So, I mean, it's hard to say. I don't think we've really seen a scenario like that, but I sure hope that it doesn't end with a Michigan team that's played nobody and lost their only meaningful game, getting into the field over TCU.
I still can't believe that Michigan's non-conference schedule got rated second worst, and UCLA's was worse. When UCLA, it's Bowling Green and South Alabama, but South Alabama's got 9 wins. They're playing for a chance to go into the Sun Belt title game. Right. Bowling Green out of nowhere makes a bowl game, and Alabama State, HBCU, Pac-12 partnership, whatever. Michigan ducked UCLA in the non-conference. They pulled out of that series to play the number 1 team in Hawaii, a bowl eligible UConn, and a top 5 team in the state of Colorado. Let's go Rams. I don't know. I don't get it. Speaking of TCU, I don't know if you can hear Bruin barking. Is that happening?
Yeah, it is.
It is. Oh, sick.
It's fine. It's just part of the ambiance now.
TCU gets so much hate from literally everybody, but for what reason? How many other teams in TCU's spot would be in these close fights after close fights after close fights and not be able to overcome that adversity and would fall flat in one of these games and not be able to come back and win a game? The adversity that TCU has been able to overcome, what they've like, I don't get it. If you're able to win these games back to back, emotional like win after emotional win after emotional win, and you don't fall flat, like to me, that's impressive. And I know that there's a lot of other teams in these spots that would lose. So I don't get TCU hate.
Yeah, I think that for teams that people aren't familiar with, right? TCU last year missed a bowl game. I think that people think that that's a reflection of what their roster is or isn't, as opposed to how they were managed, how they finished games, how they grew up, right? And I think that we have a propensity like the other direction, right? We see Michigan play a much worse game against Illinois than TCU did last week, but people kind of don't view that as being the same. And so I think that it just, a lot of it is, well, we're used to seeing Michigan play well. Well, we're used to seeing Clemson play well. And this is something new for us to see TCU. I think that people bring in this perception of previous seasons into this season. And one of the things, and one of the ways that I think we see that is a lot of the time we see the teams that are fighting for this 4th spot, like we saw this with Cincinnati last year, we saw it with Washington a couple of years ago, they're held to the idea of being the 1 seed, right? Like they're like, well, they wouldn't beat Alabama, they wouldn't beat Georgia, they wouldn't beat whoever else. Whereas Michigan won't beat Georgia. They got destroyed last year, right? Like, but that's not really the question that we ask about a team like Michigan. That's what we ask about a team like Cincinnati or TCU or one of these teams that's been pushing for a 4th spot, and it's the wrong way to think about it, right? The question isn't, would TCU beat Georgia? The question is, would TCU beat the teams that they're fighting for 4th seed? Would they beat Clemson? Would they beat USC? That's much more of a question that I think we need to ask, instead of could they beat this hypothetical version of the best team I can think of, because that's just a ridiculous bar to clear.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Brands. Hypnotoad doesn't have the brand name yet, but still,
it's coming.
Yes, like ask anyone where Hypnotoad originates from. They're telling you TCU. They're not saying it's from Futurama. Look what TCU's been able to do. They're building a brand. Show some respect. Also, all the gear TCU has is elite. Garrett Riley wearing the Funky Town hoodie last week. Like, I don't know. TCU's doing good stuff. Let's shift over the playoff talk. Garbage stuff. Garbage. Game you're most looking forward to watching week 13.
I mean, it has to be the game, right? I think it has to be, because we just don't. For me, it has to be, because for me, I don't know what's going to happen, right? We have not seen Ohio State clearly answer the questions that is going to be posed against Michigan. They haven't had to play a team that runs the ball or has an offensive line to that level. And so we don't know if Ohio State's still going to get bowled over. And on the other side, we don't know if Michigan's going to be able to stop those receivers at all, right? They don't have a David Ojabo or an Aiden Hutchinson. So for me, it's the fact that it's a complete unknown. This is one of the biggest games in college football, and I have no idea what's going to happen, because we've never seen one of these teams play against elite competition. So I'm very excited for that game. Look, maybe it just ends up being, Ohio State running away with the game. That absolutely could happen. But, I feel like I've spent so much of the season harping on what Michigan can't do that sometimes I do feel like I need to give them a little more respect for what they can do.
I'm going to go down to the state of North Carolina, where UNC last week put up a dud against Georgia Tech. NC State, on the other hand, their offense is not great. Now, they're starting a true freshman at quarterback, MJ Morris, who I think has potential. We'll see him a lot next year, hopefully be a little bit better. This is a bounce back spot for UNC. That game last week has to be an anomaly. They have to get that offense going, because they know their defense is so atrociously bad. The offense has to carry them for 4 quarters. And, hopefully this game doesn't go to overtime because the offense might just have their backs broken for carrying for so long. Drake May should not be out of the Heisman conversation because of one game when CJ Stroud put up a dud against Northwestern. We can say it's wind. It was so bad. I'm not going to say it was just the wind. Yes, he had a bad game. He also had receivers that weren't making plays. May had a beautiful ball right side of the end zone. Absolutely just disgusting drop by Josh Downs. It would have been an easy touchdown. And I think that could have given momentum to UNC enough to win the game. And then people are like, yeah, not the greatest performance for May, but he was able to come back, not a bad performance. I think that this needs to be an elite performance. I'm not going to say he's going to win the Heisman because I do think that's going to end up being Caleb Williams' award, but at least make sure you have a plane ticket to New York City. This is going to be a fun game to watch. NC State's got one of the better defenses in the country. UNC, when they're rolling, has one of the best offenses in the country. Just don't watch the other side of the ball for either of those teams. It's not going to be fun.
Is MJ Morris guaranteed to play?
I would hope so.
Last week.
I would hope so. I don't think he's bad. I think he's young. I think there's a difference.
No, I know, but he was out last week with injury.
Yeah, I would hope he's back this week.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina, the fact that they only scored 17 points, that was their fewest since I want to say it was the Virginia Tech season opener last year where Sam Howell threw the dud. He had 3 interceptions in that game. I'm pretty sure that was the last one. I know it's the fewest they've had this season. So that one was really, really surprising. But I'm going to look at Notre Dame and USC. I think this is kind of a prove-it game, as we talked about, for both teams. A lot of people maybe still are skeptical about USC. They're always going to have that sort of chip on their shoulder because a lot of people thought they were going to be frauds when Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams came in and they brought in all this talent. And I think they've proven that they can really compete. And people want to see what this Notre Dame team can do. Since that loss to Stanford, they've played really, really well, more like the team that we expected to see, in September and October. So I want to see if Notre Dame can compete with this USC team. And I want to see if USC can go into the Pac-12 championship game with a lot of momentum. If they win handedly, I feel bad for whoever's on the other side of the Pac-12 championship game in Vegas, because I do think they are probably one of the hottest teams in the country right now. Caleb Williams, I think, is the hottest quarterback in the country right now. The way he played against UCLA was spectacular. I know that UCLA defense, sorry, Liam, is really struggling in the backside.
Speaking the facts.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams is going to tear up pretty much any secondary, but this Notre Dame defense is really, really good, as we've talked about. The offense is coming along. I think it could be a really fun game, and I'm excited to see, who comes out on top. I would expect it to be USC, but I want to see a really tight game.
That dude, Caleb, is special. I also am realizing I never gave my playoff prediction, which was just the same as Shehan. It was just Georgia, Ohio State / Michigan. I think it'll be Ohio State, TCU, and SC. But I'm disappointed in all of you. Extremely disappointed. There is a game tonight. We're recording on Tuesday. This goes out Wednesday, whatever. A trip to the MAC championship is on the line, and none of you chose it. Tickets to Detroit are up for grabs. Bowling Green is one win away from possibly going to the MAC championship. Who could have seen that coming? And Ohio, the Bobcats, the team I believe to be the best team in the MAC, has to win this game to get in. And Curtis Rourke, the Maple Missile, probably isn't playing. But that's bad. If Curtis ain't playing, the best team in the MAC might not make the MAC championship because Odu Hilaire and Bowling Green are going. I think that's a big game to look towards. And then the Apple Cup, just to give a game that's actually on a date that where it hasn't been played yet. Can't wait for Apple Cup. Jalen McMillan and Roma Dunze, absolute freaks at receiver. The battle, as Andrew said, Michael Penix Jr. versus Cameron Ward. That's what I'll be eating for Thanksgiving. That game is going to be so good. I don't like Thanksgiving food. That's what I'll take. Yeah, well, I don't.
What?
I'm with you on this one, Liam.
What's not you can eat what you want. What's the part you don't like?
I don't like turkey. I don't like.
I mean, that's fair.
I like all the food. I just don't like. I don't know.
Stuffing sucks.
I don't
man,
really like stuffing. I don't really like.
Thank you.
By the way,
it's just food I don't like.
So I don't know if you guys saw yesterday. So Andy Staples was recording his show, and they did a Thanksgiving foods draft, and they had Scott Docterman on, the Iowa beat writer, and he said the most Iowa stuff that I can imagine, which is he drafted cottage cheese and black olives for
Okay,
his
black olives
Thanksgiving
is cool.
sides.
Wait,
Oh,
that's
For Thanksgiving
Hey. Well,
Who eats cottage cheese? That's disgusting.
in
Apparently,
general,
I don't know, man. You're in the Midwest. Explain it to me.
no. As a Midwesterner, I do not claim cottage cheese and black olives for Thanksgiving. No.
I had more Iowa people come into my mentions and say, no, like this is something we eat at Thanksgiving. So I guess it just must be an Iowa thing.
That
I don't know
has to
what the
be
deal is.
All Minnesota has like tater tot hot dish. We've got Snickers salad. I've never heard of.
What? Snickers salad? That's worse than the carrot sandwich you made.
No, carrot sandwiches are fire. Just putting shredded carrots on sandwiches is fine. This has gone completely off the rails, but you know what? It's Thanksgiving. We can talk about food.
We're on the rails. I don't understand. A Snickers salad? What is that?
Yeah,
Just, I've never had it, but it's a Minnesota thing. So I'll let them do their thing. It's not for me. 'Cause I don't even like Snickers. So.
But is it? Oh, so it is a literal like Snickers candy, or we're not.
Yeah,
That's not going over our heads.
it's like a dessert dish, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, okay.
Let me
You
get
throw the
the
word
exact
salad in there. I'm like,
definition.
what's happening?
Oh,
Okay,
so
no, I got it.
Okay.
This
It's
like
Minnesota stuff just never gonna shock me. Like I can't get out of my mind when in season 3 of Fargo, dude goes and says, "Yeah, let me get the salad." Goes into the fridge and it's just like a Jello thingy. Like it ain't salad at all.
yeah.
Minnesota, like,
Okay.
what are you doing with food?
This is the definition of Snickers salad. It's a dessert salad consisting of a mix of Snickers bars, Granny Smith apples, whipped cream, and pudding.
Disgusting. That's
Yeah,
awful.
so it's funny, you know, there was like the deal where you put in like the states that you've been in, stayed through, all that sort of stuff, and I just have like a giant circle around the Midwest where I've like never been anywhere except for Chicago, and I don't know, man, it doesn't make me want to go. Hearing about Snickers salad and cottage cheese.
Yeah, I'll admit, if you're going to the Midwest, you're not going to try food.
That's not good. How are you gonna survive?
Look, man, we've got
Liam.
Culver's. We've got Culver's and cheese curds.
Listen, Liam, how do you think that Wisconsin and all of them get those giant linemen? They eat cottage cheese and Snickers salad.
The lack of offense is really clear to me
Yeah, they're
now.
way down.
I get why Iowa can't do anything on offense because they spend their summers and falls eating cottage cheese. But UCLA and SC, they've got something coming for them when they got to play Big Ten football, and they're going to play at Nebraska and Iowa. These dudes were eating like, I don't know, well, regular Thanksgiving food. Now they're going to have to play a team that's coming off cottage cheese and Snickers salads and carrot sandwiches. They're not going to know what hit them.
What do you think the cultural exchange of like LA fans going to like Nebraska is gonna be like? They're gonna be like, where is the avocado salad? Like, where is and then they're gonna be like, here's a cinnamon roll with chili on it.
Where's the boba?
That's just like I can't imagine. Anyway, yes, we've gone very off the rails. It's
Cottage
just
cheese, oh, man.
that time of year.
Anyway, I'll be having some mac and cheese for Thanksgiving and a little apple pie and I don't know, maybe some chocolate. That's what my Thanksgiving food
That's a heck
will
of a
be.
meal.
All cookies.
Thank you, man.
No problems with it.
Thank you. I'll be watching some Egg Bowl, some college basketball. You know how it goes. Hot take or bold prediction? I think the hot take could have been Andrew Drewster talking about his Minnesota foods in some way. I don't know. Hot take or bold prediction for week 13?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that my hot take is that it's a good question. I think that my hot take is that Drake May can still play himself back into the Heisman conversation. So I'm involved in the All-America team selection for the Football Writers Association, and we always wait on quarterbacks because we want to be able to obviously take into account these last 2 weeks of the season. But I was very discouraged by how discouraged people were with Drake May after just one bad game. He had been incredible before that, and it felt like people were out on him. But they do get NC State, who's a very good defense this week. In 2 weeks, they'll get Clemson in the ACC championship game. If they win both those games and he has awesome games, look, it might not be enough to catch Caleb or the winner of Blake Corum versus CJ Stroud, but I mean, he should be in New York, and I think that he's going to have an opportunity to have a bounce back game and really have a signature performance, I think, this upcoming week.
Yeah, I love Drake, man. I almost want to make my bold prediction that chili and cinnamon might actually be good. I don't know why it sounds good.
That.
I'm from Midwest. All my food takes are nullified. I'm going to go bold prediction. The Palmetto Bowl between South Carolina and Clemson. Clemson, you have a very small chance to make the playoff. Not after this week. Spencer Rattler last week was not a fluke. He just needed a good confidence-boosting game. Beamer's got him going. The Gamecocks take down the Tigers.
I like that one.
Spencer Rattler's dad, are you listening now?
Gosh.
Man, I think Liam might have this one because he mentioned it a little bit earlier. So I'm going to steal his because Andrewster stole both of mine earlier. I think Vanderbilt is going to clinch bowl eligibility in stunning fashion over a toppling Tennessee team right now. I mean, without Hendon Hooker, I think the Vols are going to struggle. I like Joe Milton, but there's just something special about that Tennessee offense with Hendon Hooker. I like where Vanderbilt's at right now. I can't believe I'm saying this right now, but I think Vanderbilt will beat Tennessee and clinch a bowl game. Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
It's crazy to think about. Oh man!
Just tell Joe Milton not to run out of bounds on the final play of the game.
I'll make sure to put in a good word.
I'm sorry. I still flashbacks to that.
Also, as Liam Blutman, my food takes are also nullified, so I'm with you there, Andrew.
Yeah, Liam doesn't eat steak.
Because it's too chewy.
You're not having good steak.
Get a less well done steak.
It's not. It's just like it. Look, chewy to me isn't chewy to other people is the problem. Like, look, I had a cheesesteak last night with no cheese. Okay. What? I didn't want cheese. I didn't want cheese on it. That's
not a cheesesteak. That's not a cheesesteak.
So steak sandwich. It was with green peppers and onions and some Louisiana hot sauce. I liked it. Brother tried some of the steak. Said it wasn't chewy. I thought it was chewy. Well, what can you do?
Where are you from, Liam? Remind me.
I was born in LA, live in Vegas.
Okay. Well, you got to come down to Texas because we got the real good stuff whenever it comes to steak. But it really is about cut. You get the right cut. You get it cooked the right way. Like there's legit like melt in your mouth type steaks, and they're delicious.
Yes. So we're possibly on the recruiting trail now for recruiting me to find a good steak in a certain like state or city. I've been in Houston and Dallas. I haven't had steak there.
Dallas is a good spot for steak. It is.
Then I
little
wish.
pricey.
Okay. Oh man, bold prediction: Liam Blutman eats steak this week. I'll just drop the bomb here. Auburn beats Alabama.
Is that a grenade?
Yeah, a grenade. I don't know why it's a bomb. It's a nuke. I don't know. Auburn beats Alabama. Why not? Alabama's looked so susceptible week in and week out. It's felt like this is not that elite dominant Alabama team. Bill O'Brien's on the offensive staff. We see that week in and week out. His presence felt in the worst possible way. They don't play the right dudes at receiver. Jahmyr Gibbs was benched for no reason a few weeks ago. Austin P is a 34-0 win. Austin P got into it, like should have had like 14 points probably. What are we doing? Auburn at least is playing with juice and fire, and they're playing for Cad Black. Like, why not? Like, this Iron Bowl, you see every year, like, the impossible could happen. So why not? They'll probably lose 48-3, but...
I will say, last year, we thought Auburn has no chance. That was one of the closest games of the year.
They should have won it at the end.
And you also said Auburn has Auburn has the juice. Actually, Lane's going to take the juice to them. Juice Kiffin.
Oh, yeah, you're right, man. Good one.
Thank you.
Wow.
That's a knee slapper.
Player focus, one group of five / FCS, one power five. Who you looking forward to watching this week? Who's got that huge matchup?
Yeah, I will. With my Power Five, I am going to go with Caleb Williams. I think that obviously he's just the guy right now in college football. I think that he has an opportunity against a really good Notre Dame defense to really make his case. And again, like I mentioned, Notre Dame is the same team that Drake May played against. He's the same team that CJ Stroud played against. Even they played Clemson. Obviously, they don't have a Heisman kid, but so we know what players have done against Notre Dame in the past, and so I think that Caleb Williams has an opportunity to come out and really put together a big statement if he's able to have a big game. And so I'm really excited for that one. Come back to me for my group of five one. I need to think for a bit.
Caleb is also just such an elite personality. It hurt, but I can admit it. His post-game interview after the win last week was pretty good. I like what I heard.
I will tell you one thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Who is the last player in college football who has had this scrutinized a career, right? Because he, from the moment he got to Oklahoma, right, number 2 quarterback in the country behind Quinn Ewers, and like all eyes on him, he comes in, he obviously does what he does, but then he transfers and everybody hates him over there in Oklahoma. He goes to USC. Everybody hates USC at that point. They struggle and obviously end up losing to Utah. Everybody's complaining about Caleb Williams. Like, he is, I mean, part of it is because of the brand that he's created for himself. He's such a face in college football, but man, he's 19 years old, and I don't know if there are very many people in this world who have dealt with the same sort of scrutiny. I mean, I don't want to
get it. I think he's an elite personality.
Yeah.
As a UCLA fan, like, I don't care. I've rooted for him all year. We go back like week 2 or 3. I said, like, he's going to be my pick to win the Heisman. I'm an idiot for never betting it. What's wrong with me there? I don't know. I love watching Caleb Williams play. Like, I don't care. Like, rivalry or not, he is such a superb talent. He is like that throw that he makes rolling to his left. What was it? Maybe in the second quarter, and he throws an absolute dart to the sideline. I cannot believe the velocity on that ball was. I'm unable to comprehend.
Yeah, I remember Joel Klatt saying a quarterback should not be able to do that, and that's completely. It's how.
Right.
I also remember Gus Johnson saying, "What's the Spider-Man?"
Gus Johnson's a national treasure, man. I'm going to move on to.
He's been on one this year, man. He's been on one.
The TikTok, the Twitter, the memes, like seeing Gus and the analytics. The analytics is wild. I haven't seen anybody hate analytics as much as Gus, and like it's incredible. No matter what your stance is, Gus going in on analytics is like elite content.
Yeah, and of course the Gus Johnson, yummy, yummy, yummy. That one. And I don't know why, no free ads. He does an amazing job in commercials. Like, whatever commercials he's going 100% no matter what it's for.
You got to commit, yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
It's hard to be better than the best.
It's impossible.
And I'm gonna circle back around. So obviously the biggest, the most impactful, I guess you'd say, group of 5 game this weekend is Tulane versus Cincinnati. That's going to be a barn burner, of course. I'm going to be keeping an eye on Tyjae Spears over at Tulane. I think that this Cincinnati defense has been awesome all year long, and I think that if there's one player who can kind of spread them out and cause some issues with his versatility, we got to see that a little bit when Tulane played earlier this season against UCF. So I'm excited to see what he can do in that game. He's somebody who I'm going to be watching very closely.
It's crazy what Tyjae has been able to do coming off the leg injuries. Like, the burst is still there, the speed, the like explosiveness is all still there, the agility, left to right stuff. And he's coming off, if I'm not mistaken, it's an Achilles and an ACL. I could be wrong, but remarkable return for him.
Yeah, also great call on Dylan preseason, calling him the group of 5 running back to watch. I remember that one. I'm gonna Power 5, I'm going to go back to North Carolina just because I love this Tar Heels team. Josh Downs didn't have the greatest week last week. This is a great bounce back spot. His NFL draft stock's been going up all year. I truly believe that he can have not really a breakout game because everybody knows about Josh Downs, but he can have a status changing game. He can go from I'd say right now he's probably day 2 pick. He can try and move his way up into that round 1 conversation if he has a great day against a great defense in NC State. And obviously it's such a heated rivalry. Any great performance is going to be put on a pedestal. Group of 5, I'm actually going to go down to the FCS. Beginning of the FCS playoffs is here. One of the games I'm going to be watching, Gardner-Webb, Eastern Kentucky. A lot of people are going to say this is going to be one of the worst games of the playoffs.
Yeah. I'm saying
that's not where I expected you to go with the FCS playoffs.
But you know what, man? The running Bulldogs of Gardner-Webb, TJ Luther, such a talented receiver for them. They're playing an Eastern Kentucky team that, let's just say that if you think UNC's defense is bad, I would like for you to look at Eastern Kentucky and be like, wow, Gene Chizik, best defensive coordinator of all time. TJ Luther is averaging 18.8 yards per catch. He is doing so well this year. He's a great deep threat. Look for him to have 2 40-plus yard touchdowns in this game. Gardner-Webb to take it as well.
I was expecting some Elon Furman love there, maybe, but Gardner-Webb. All right, yeah, that's
Elon
probably the first time
Elon Furman's like the one game we disagreed on our bracket prediction.
Yeah, in the first round, that's the only I had Elon. He is Furman because I want a blue check mark from Elon.
Well, I see what you did there. See, you got to have me back next week so that I can talk about Lindsey Scott some more at Incarnate Word. But unfortunately, I couldn't pick him this week.
We both have him in the Final Four.
Yep.
Man, if they could put him in the Heisman Trophy race, I would love to see that because, man, I've been all over Lindsey Scott, just like RG3. I got to talk to him earlier this season. That man is playing on another level right now. So I can't wait to see him tear up in the playoffs. But I'm going to go with the guy I talked about just a few minutes ago. I'm going to talk about Joe Milton. I want to see if he can help this Vols offense keep momentum, bounce back from the South Carolina game. As a backup, he's actually played really well. I mean, he has 573 yards on only 23 completions, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, 5th-year senior, transfer from Michigan. Obviously, he's had some moments that he'd probably like to forget, as Andrewster alluded to earlier. But, without Hooker, I want to see if this Tennessee offense can still have a pulse, if Milton can lead them there, and if they can slip into a New Year's Six bowl as well. And then in the group of 5, you talked about Tulane Cincinnati as the top group of 5 game, and I wouldn't sleep on Coastal and James Madison. I know Coastal doesn't have Grayson McCall, but if James Madison wants to pull off this upset, I don't know if I'd call it an upset completely because I've been a huge fan of this James Madison team, and they're starting to play a lot better. Chris Thornton is going to have to make big plays, and he's been a bit up and down since Todd Centeio was dealing with those injuries. But this Coastal defense is in the bottom 15 of the country in pass defense. I love Chris Thornton. I've been really high on him all year since Liam introduced him to me. He has a prime chance to make his mark on a national TV game. I know a lot of people are going to be watching Michigan, Ohio State during that time slot, but I want to see if Chris Thornton can do some damage against Coastal.
I will mention James Madison, a 13.5 point favorite in that game.
Crazy.
So it's, I get it, but also, woof. I mean, that's a lot of points. So I'm going to be curious to see what happens in that game too.
It's tough, seeing that Coastal blew it against Old Dominion and Grayson go down as someone that thought that this could be a one-loss team. And Grayson could possibly get Heisman buzz with a few late big games, but it ain't happening. Hate it for Grayson. Power 5. Look, a lot of talk about USC's offense. A lot of talk about Caleb Williams. Go to the other side. Go Notre Dame. Benjamin Morrison, as a true freshman, has 5 interceptions. He's got a 3 interception game and a 2 interception game. He has the lowest passer rating allowed for any cornerback in college football with a minimum of 230 targets or something. Or targets, gosh, that'd be a lot. 230 snaps. The huge difference there. Numbers tough for me. I'm sorry. Benjamin Morrison, though, if he has a huge game, not even a huge game, if he I don't know, man. But that kid is such a special talent with his ball hawking skills and everything. If he's able to show out against Caleb Williams and SC when Caleb's getting Heisman buzz and SC's on the cusp of a playoff, whew, crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, and I'll add to that. I think that one thing you have to look at is that USC leads the nation with 18 interceptions, and they have one of the best turnover differentials in college football. Now, that's settled down a little bit in the past couple of weeks, but I think that if we see Notre Dame start to cause issues, and if Notre Dame also takes care of the ball, I think that's a huge test for USC, and I think that he's going to be a big part of that.
And then I went with Aaron Banks from Richmond. DB there has 4 interceptions on the season, 5 pass breakups, I believe. They are playing Davidson this week. Shouldn't be there. Tommy should be there. Yeah.
You don't want to get me started on that rant again, Liam. I went 5 minutes on that FCS show talking about how the St. Thomas Tommies got absolutely robbed because of a stupid NCAA rule. I will try and keep my cool now.
Yeah, look out for Aaron Banks on Richmond, though. I think Richmond's a team that could make a surprising run, and they have a lot of talent in their secondary. I would look out for Aaron Banks, and we could move along to game picks. Let's start with the Egg Bowl.
I'll go ahead and take Ole Miss. I just think that they're a more complete team. Now, I will say, at the same time, might be some distractions when it comes to that game with all the lane stuff going around. But look, I've heard just one too many times about Washington game planning for Mike Leach in in the Apple Cup and saying we just brought out the same game plan and it worked over and over again year after year. Obviously, I think they're gonna mix it up as well, but I just think Ole Miss is a more complete team, and I trust that coaching staff just a little bit more as well.
One name and one name only, Quinshon Judkins, Ole Miss.
I mean, what a treat Mike Leach versus Lane Kiffin's going to be. I hope this isn't the last time that we get that in the Egg Bowl. I mean, forget watching a 3-hour football game between them. I'll watch these two have a conversation for 3 hours and be just as entertained. But in all seriousness, Ole Miss played one of the weirdest games of the season last year. They had over 700 yards against Arkansas, had 200-yard rushers, and they lost by 15 against Arkansas. Like, that was just one of the weirdest box scores I've ever looked at from a team that lost by 15 points. I think this game should be really high scoring, but I like the Rebels to bounce back.
I was thinking of switching my pick, but I switched my pick twice last week and got burned twice. So we ain't doing that. And my dog's been barking the entire show. So, clearly I have to side with Juice Kiffin and Ole Miss. We can move on to NC State UNC.
Yeah, I just think that NC State's not going to be able to score with this team. And UNC does have one of the worst defenses probably in all of college football. But yeah, I mean, if it's a Drake May versus freshman quarterback competition, then I think that Drake May and Josh Downs are going to have a bounce back game. And I really don't think Josh Downs is going to drop another wide open pass in the end zone. So give me UNC.
Yeah, that was extremely uncharacteristic. Give me, you know what, Josh Downs to catch 2 touchdowns in this game. Give me UNC by 3 scores.
Yeah, I think this North Carolina offense can easily score more points than NC State's. I think even if NC State had Devin Leary and he was healthy, I would still probably take Drake May and North Carolina in this one.
Yeah, I've been saying it all week. Josh Downs goes for 3 touchdowns in this game. One up the Andrews. How do you like that? I'm taking UNC, and Josh Downs with a healthy year, man, he'd be getting so much Biletnikoff love, man. If he was healthy all year, dang. Wyoming, Fresno State is up next.
Yeah, well, obviously before the season, Craig Bowl basically put out an open ad saying, hey, who wants to be the next Josh Allen? And if last week is any indication, they did not find him. Obviously a horrible passing game for Wyoming last week. I just think that Jake Haener is going to come out and put together something special in his last regular season game.
The end of an era with Jake Haener. Such a fun career it was. Unfortunately, he did get the injury this year. If he was fully healthy, I believe this Fresno State team is probably playing for the Mountain West. Taking Fresno State, this Wyoming team is yuck. That's the one word to describe them.
They have 7 wins somehow. They got absolutely ravaged by the transfer portal, and they're better. I don't understand Wyoming at all. But yeah, I think they're going to get absolutely whipped by Fresno State. The only note I put was Jake Haener, period, and that was it. So Fresno State.
Sick. The only note I put was King Jake Haener, like legit. I'm not trying to one up you, but I put King Jake Haener. Give me. I'm not. That's the note I put.
It's the second time.
This one is true. And Drewster, that was on the fly. King Jake Haener, that's true. He's got his throne back. Dude is cooking all the time. Coastal Carolina JMU up next. Shehan pointed out 13.5-point spread. Wild.
Yeah, that's a lot of points, to be honest. That's a lot of points. Coastal looked okay last week without Grayson McCall. Obviously, I think he deserves more credit as being one of the great college football quarterbacks right now, but I do think that quarterback battle does make the difference. Todd Centeio looked back to himself a little bit more last week, and so I'm going to lean James Madison, though I wouldn't take a 13.5-point line if we were picking against that.
Yeah, if we were picking against spread, I would definitely take Coastal. I think this is a close game, but without Grayson McCall, I don't feel confident picking Coastal, so I'm going to take JMU as well.
If Grayson McCall was playing, this would be must-watch TV, even though it's on at the same time as the game. But, Coastal's passing game was just really ineffective for the most part against Southern Miss with Jared Guest. I like Bryce Carpenter's upside a little bit more. He's got more experience. And he's taking good care of the football, which is something I think you have to do against James Madison and that defense. But if that passing game can't get going, they're not going to have a good time running the ball against JMU's defense, which leads the country in, defensive rushing yards per game and per carry. I like Todd Centeio and Chris Thornton to do some numbers. I think they actually might get close to that spread, but I'd still take Coastal on the spread. But I'm taking James Madison to win.
The spread frightens me. I want to switch my pick. I want to take Coastal. So I'm going to take Coastal. Bryce Carpenter has that shirt that reads, when I run, I'm not going to slide, so don't blow the whistle. That's the mentality I want for my quarterback. Let's go, Coastal. Let's get a win here. Let the haters say, you guys could take JMU on the money line like minus 750. Whatever.
Plus 750.
What? No, JMU.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Coastal would be.
No. You guys are the cowards taking them. I'll take the underdog there. I'll switch my pick. And Louisville, Kentucky, while I go run to get my charger real quick.
Yeah, this is a game. I don't know how Scott Satterfield isn't fired right now, but he might get, who knows? Maybe he gets an extension instead. This has been such a weird season for Louisville, but they're coming into their own at the right time. And, I really hate that Kentucky offensive line. We saw it exposed a couple of times, obviously the past couple of weeks. I think that this just feels like just a totally demoralizing Louisville win, and he's able to hang on to that recruiting class.
Yeah, the fact that he was able to get that recruiting class. Now he's playing better, so props to him. This Kentucky team is just so bad. You talked about the offensive line. They lost guys to the NFL draft last year, and it just doesn't seem like they were able to replace them. Chris Rodriguez looks okay. Will Levis, man. Whoa, yuck. I like Malik Cunningham. As much as I don't like this Louisville team, I think you hit it right on the head. This is just a yuck game. I'm going to take Louisville to win and feel sick about it.
To be fair, this game was on our chopping block the entire time we were trying to figure out what games to pick. If we were going to combine the FCS playoffs with these picks, we would have gone with one of those. And this was just kind of what was left by default. So, yeah, we have to talk about this. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it, but I will say the Will Levis hype, I've never understood it. I just get Cal Jared Goff vibes from him, where people are just projecting him to be a super high draft pick, and I've never seen it. So congratulations to some team out there, because Will Levis is going to take you to a Super Bowl if, the cards are in play there. But I wrote down
JETE will not be going to a Super Bowl with him.
If you trade him after a few years, then you can win a Super Bowl. It's a long-term plan.
I flipped a coin.
Yeah,
I went Louisville.
I take issue with him being Jared Goff. It's very clearly Jake Blocker. Very clearly. Just fantastic tools, just surprisingly big, and also has never really thrown passes to receivers at any point, other than Wan'Dale Robinson.
And the other team sometimes. But look, the thing here is college football fans on one side, not understanding the Will Levis like stuff at all. Like, don't think he's very good. The NFL like draft people, hardcore analysts, whatever. Like, Will Levis is the GOAT, potential QB1, best thing we've seen since Josh Allen, blah blah. And then there's the middle where like you are a college football fan, but you are like NFL draft dude, like Andrewster and I, and whereas like, wait, what are they talking about? Like, we're over here, man. Like, what are y'all talking about? I don't understand it at all. Give me Louisville, please. And I don't want to pick this game. This game stinks.
There had to have been a better game, Dylan.
I disagree. This was a must-pick game because who knows what the hell is going to happen.
Great.
Should have picked Georgia Southern App State. So much hate. That game needs no.
We can do that.
Georgia Southern App State needs to be played on a weeknight every year. That needs to be a Thursday game in October. What were we doing? Oregon State.
Yeah, I do think that Oregon comes out and does win this game, but it is going to be a battle. It is going to be a huge, huge battle. I think that Oregon's offense just has a little bit too much explosiveness for Oregon State to ultimately keep up. I love what Jonathan Smith is building there, though, and I'm very excited to watch what they are long term.
Yeah, I love what Oregon State's done. Dylan, if you had to guess, what's one name I'm going to talk about right now?
Jack Colletto.
Justin Flo. Linebacker.
Dylan.
Is it Justin Flo?
No, the one name I am going to think of.
Oh. He's so biased. It's
Bucky Irving.
Oh, yeah.
He's so biased. It's unreal.
Okay, but you have to admit Bucky Irving's been insane this year.
Yeah. He has been smooth.
He has been very good. I think he's going to be one of the biggest reasons this Oregon team wins. Bo Nix isn't fully healthy. How much is he going to run? We don't know. Bucky Irving can run, can catch. I think he's the reason why Oregon wins this game.
Here's the thing, and I am picking Oregon to win this game, but here's the thing. It's hard to believe, but Oregon State has the second best total defense in the Pac-12, which is nuts because they've had just a garbage defense for years and years and years. They even changed their defensive coordinator midseason. I think that was last year or 2020. And this would be the first time they've been a top 2 defense in the Pac-12 in 15 years. They have the best rush defense. So a lot of credit has to go to Jonathan Smith and Trent Bray, the defensive coordinator, that limited Washington's offense better than anyone has this year. Of course, they lost that game. But yeah, I'm going to go with what Shehan said. I think Oregon's offense is just going to be just enough to win that game. But yeah, it's going to be an absolute brawl, as it always is and should be.
I'm going with Oregon here, but look, I want to see how Damian Martinez plays for Oregon State in this game. Kid from Texas, 3-star freshman. Like, I want to see how he plays in his first taste of this rivalry because he's got a bright future ahead. And we know that Oregon State offensive line could straight up move people out the way. Shout out Brandon Kipper. Give him more draft love. Notre Dame SC. Talked about this one a decent bit today. But who do we have winning?
I just don't think that Notre Dame has the firepower to keep up either. Like a big part of this game is going to be, will Notre Dame be able to do what they did against Clemson and just run over them? Because if the answer is not 100% yes, this one could get ugly. So I do think that USC is going to be focused, and I just don't think that Notre Dame is going to be able to score probably the 40 points that they'll need to win this game.
Name of the game for this Notre Dame team in this matchup is ball security. If they give USC any extra possessions, they lose automatically. I think they do. I think USC wins big.
If we were picking this game like a month ago, this wouldn't even be one game that we're picking a month ago because, Notre Dame was coming off the loss to Stanford and we wrote them off completely and deservedly so. But they've bounced back so nicely. And I think they're, showing what this Marcus Freeman program can do under his leadership. But with that being said, I think this USC team is just too hot. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I do think USC is going to win.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is just such a stellar leader, and it's hard for me to see them coming out flat after the emotional win last week. I think they're going to be prepared and play well. I think it's also pretty frightening that SC has figured out Jordan Addison does play for them, and he is healthy again. When you get the ball in that guy's hands, yikes. Benjamin Morrison has a tough test against Addison. That dude is straight up flying and gliding all over the field with the ball in his hands. I wish they forgot he existed last week. That didn't happen. He is very good, Mr. Jordan, and I will take USC. We'll go with I'll give a score. Give me 34-20. I'll take it by 14. Respect the score unless I get it wrong. Never said it. Washington State, Apple Cup.
Yeah, this game's going to be hell for everybody, man. It's going to be so much fun. Obviously, Cameron Ward versus Michael Penix, like you guys mentioned. Look, this Washington offense has been pretty close to unstoppable all year. And the Washington State offense has showed signs, right? You've seen some really, really encouraging signs. I don't think they've been quite as consistent, but you do kind of trade that off with a really good defense. So I think I'm gonna, I'm gonna take Washington State in this game. I think that they're just a little bit more of a complete team at this point, and I think that we see sort of that complete performance that we've been waiting from them. Other than maybe that, what you want the Huskies instead, dog? I don't know, but but I think that Washington State, we saw what they could do in that game against Oregon. Obviously, a game they should have won, and I think that they're going to put together one of those types of performances at home. I'm sure in front of a great crowd in Pullman, and they end up pulling off the upset.
I really want Washington State to win. I freaking love that team. I love what Dickert's been able to do there in such a not short amount of time, but he's only been the head coach for about a year and a half now. Just such a great job. I love Cameron Ward. Everyone knows that if they have ever seen me. But Washington had their storm field by Washington State fans last year. That's just got to add so much anger to you that not only did you not protect your home field, the other people just stormed in and took it. I know this is a first-year head coach. I know this is a first-year quarterback at Washington. They've got to hear stories from the vets on this team. Imagine the rage that they have. I like Washington here.
Yeah, you talked about it. Washington's going to come into this game with anger in their eyes, revenge in their soul because of what happened last year. But I feel like this Washington State offense specifically has just been waiting to flick a switch. I feel like it's been on the verge, but Cameron Ward hasn't really been Cameron Ward the last couple of weeks. Has had 300-yard games, but he's also in those games turned it over, and they've lost. That Oregon State game, he put up yards, but they couldn't put up points. I just feel like they've been waiting to put it all together, and I think this is the week that they do it against a Washington defense that you never really know what you're going to get from it. I mean, they got ripped to shreds against Oregon on the ground specifically, so I feel like Wazoo might have an advantage there as well, but I just have a feeling that Cameron Ward is going to show people who he was in Incarnate Word for the first time in a while. So I like Washington State in this one.
First off, very disappointed and apologize for my dog. This was the worst performance of the year from Bruin. He had not been like this all year. Looking forward to the Apple Cup, though. Now, look, by the time this game kicks off, you can say what you want, but Washington will know if they are playing in the Pac-12 if they have a chance of playing in the Pac-12 championship game or not. You can say what you want, Andrew. You could say no phones on my team, no social media, blah blah blah. They're in a stadium of how many people? Word gets around. They'll know. The players are going to know what is happening. Giving Washington State, if Washington's eliminated from that, all that hurts your heart. That stings. It's deflating, man. Like that's so hard to overcome. These are college kids that are having that.
They have a chance.
News broken. I don't think they're going to have a chance.
Well, what if
they beat Oregon, though? So that's, like we were talking about earlier, as long as you beat your rival, then that's all they care about.
Taking Washington State. Friday, Group of 5 / FCS game of the week at the transfer portal. CFB, Tulane, Cincy. There's a lot on the line.
Yeah, well, I can't believe that you guys snubbed the Gardner-Webb game?
Yeah, Gardner-Webb
for your game of the
insane,
week,
Dylan. Insane. The running Bulldogs, man. What a freaking train.
Dictator Dylan.
So this is a great game. Obviously, Cincinnati still the two-time defending AAC champions, have built an incredible program there. I think it's a testament to the fact that they haven't actually been very good this year, and they're still in a position to potentially go back to that conference championship game because of what they've built there. Defensively, of special team, even though they lost so many pieces from that group. But I just think that Tulane is going to have something ready for them. I think that, we've obviously seen Tulane's defense come up big in big spots, but I've kind of been waiting for that offensive game where everything comes together. We started to see some of it last week against SMU. They hit a completely different level with their back against the wall. And I think we see that Tulane team play on Friday. So give me Tulane.
Tyjae Spears and Michael Pratt, all I want to say. I think Cincinnati is a good team, but I feel like that there's still some people that are like riding a Cinderella high because of last year. This is a very different team. Very different. I'll take Tulane here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a really, really close game either way. I think it could be a pretty low scoring game because of, like you talked about, the defenses in this game are both very, very good. But I'm going to make a bold prediction like I did. I think it was last year's Fresno State-Nevada game. I predicted how the game would end, and I was spot on. And so I'm going to try that again. I haven't tried it this year. I'm going to try it again. I think Michael Pratt will throw an interception with less than a minute left in a one-score game. I think Cincinnati wins it.
Well, that was mean.
Was I not supposed to name check him? Sorry. Tulane will throw an interception.
Tulane quarterback.
Tulane's quarterback number 4 or whatever.
Yeah, we're playing NCAA 14 because we can't play NCAA 23.
Oh, too soon.
I will simply share of Tulane games that I have personally picked this year. I'll just share. Tulane, I chose to beat Kansas State. Nice. I chose Houston to beat Tulane. Yikes. I chose East Carolina to beat Tulane. Yikes. I chose Memphis to beat Tulane. Also not good. I chose Tulsa to beat Tulane. Not good either. I chose UCF to beat Tulane. I don't know, man. I picked SMU to beat Tulane. Whoops. I have not been able to read this Tulane team, but it's because I am so just fixated on the fact that I never actually liked what I saw from them in the win against Kansas State for the entire game I watched on ESPN Plus. I never really liked what I saw on the offensive side at all. I did like a decent bit of what I saw on the defensive side. This is a group that hasn't allowed a receiver to go for 100 yards in a game this season. Like, I thought Rashee Rice was going to do it last week. What a mess SMU was last week. The pony never got going, but I'll take Tulane. Like, I've been able to pick Tulane games right when I choose them to win, so let's go.
Congrats, Cincy.
That's not true. That's,
you know what,
streak
Liam,
continues.
You're great at picking Tulane against Power 5 teams. Now, the question is the universe going to decide that Cincinnati's the Power 5 team right now?
No.
Man,
because they're about to go. They're about to.
I don't know. We saw what happened against Houston. I don't think that logic. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
Oh, man,
Liam, can you just pick Cincinnati?
No, I think Cincy's
man,
terrible.
I don't know.
You think Tulane's not
Tulane to lose?
I just
picking Tulane to lose to Tulsa is just on you. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know it's on me. How about last week on our upset show? We had picks of Western Kentucky over Auburn, UAB over LSU. What was the other one?
Boston College over Notre Dame.
Got a little bit too much dip on your chip there, I think.
Yeah, we're trying to go crazy a little too much. Wow, UAB over LSU really was not good.
I tried to tell you. I made the graphic. I tried to tell you. That was ignoramus. But you guys wanted it.
I love me some Dwayne McBride, right? It's the running back over at UAB. I love him. Also, I am not picking him to run forward into Harold Perkins better than LSU runs into them. I'm just not.
We live in a universe where we want to believe something's going to happen. Two of us apparently wanted to believe that UAB could at least put and maybe cover.
Only pick the Gamecocks.
To quote my friend Parker Fleming, a dream is a wish your heart makes.
That is so true.
I should go on a pillow.
Michigan,
Very
Ohio
Midwestern
State.
thing.
Michigan, that's true.
Put that in a salad.
Laugh love.
Don't put Michigan, Ohio State in a salad. This is the big game, the transfer portal CFB Power 5 game of the week. Who do we have winning?
So I think that thinking back to last year, of course, the way that Michigan won this game was they physically brutalized Ohio State's fronts, and they got after CJ Stroud and made him make decisions under pressure. And I think they'll be able to do the first one of those things again this year. I'm not completely sold on Ohio State being on a different level defensively, but I just don't know if Michigan's going to be able to get after the quarterback the way they did last year. You know, I personally do not trust CJ Stroud under duress, and I just don't think that they're going to be able to beat these veteran tackles on the outside. Now, will they be able to stop the run? Maybe. Will they be able to make things a little bit more difficult on the back end than they were last year? Maybe. You know, maybe that's a different pathway, but I just think that the key to beating Ohio State is to make CJ Stroud have to make quick decisions on the run. And I just don't know that Michigan's going to be able to do it. So I lean Ohio State, huge revenge spot. Obviously, this has been a game that they've been waiting for a year. And I think that Ohio State's going to take advantage.
Yeah, I think that Michigan loses this game for sure if they don't have Mike Morris. His injury update is still in the air. We don't know what's going on with him. Hopefully he can play because he's a talented pass rusher for the Wolverines. If he doesn't play, I'm easily taking Ohio State. Even if he does play, I just think that there are too many players on this Ohio State team that have bad memories from last year. And when it comes down to the nitty gritty, I'm going to trust CJ Stroud more than I do JJ McCarthy. I'm also going to take the Buckeyes here.
I mean, history kind of repeats itself with this series because I will never usually pick against Ohio State in the game because they've always been, I shouldn't say always, but for my lifetime, they've been, the alpha in this series, and it's not been close. But I know both teams have been playing much closer games than they'd like recently. And so it makes it like we've talked about all show. We've talked about how it doesn't really, we're trying to lean one way or the other, but it's not clear either way who's going to win this game, who has the edge. But I think we're going to have an all-time classic in this edition. I think CJ Stroud will have his Heisman moment in this game and lead Ohio State to a big win.
Feel like there was a lot of serious talk here. Not enough laughter, not enough jokes as we've had the entire show. Surprised by that. I actually think Ohio State's going to win in convincing fashion, but Ryan Day, like a dialogue needs to be started there. If he once again comes out in a big game against a good opponent and struggles, because this guy tries to galaxy brain everything. When this team should be throwing the ball, they're running it down your throat. When this team should be running on 4th and 1 last week, when Dallin Hayden is an exceptional back and his vision is great and everything, like they're throwing the ball. Ryan Day's got to figure it out. He is not a good play caller in big games and hasn't been for the majority of this year, regardless of who they've played. I'm going to say Jaden Ballard needs to see the field, and Ohio State needs to take some vertical shots. I like Jaden Ballard to get like a 40-plus yard touchdown reception. Please let him see the field. I think he needs to get more PT than Julian Fleming, if we're being honest. I just like so much more of what Ohio State has, and I don't know. I have not seen it from Michigan all year. At least at points we've seen it from Ohio State. I have not seen it from Michigan. Like a second half dominance over Rutgers does not move me. I'm sorry.
But at least Michigan has a dog, as Jim Harbaugh said in Ronnie Bell.
Ohio State has like a super dog in Marvin.
They've got a lot of dogs, and they do have that super dog.
Yeah. So I listen to, by the way, the College Football Survivor Show. We get very deep into this game on our podcast as well. But, one thing that I've harped on all year long is I think that it's fine for Michigan to have their plan A and run the ball super effectively, but their passing game has been a zero all season long, a complete non-factor. And in the moments, right, because I think that obviously we expect that Jim Harbaugh is going to come out and say, look, we're going to use what we need to use. We don't want to put everything on film. But you were in a position last week against Illinois without your running backs where you could have lost the football game and you still weren't able to trust the passing game. Mm-hmm. So that really concerns me. If Michigan's a truly one-dimensional team, then I just don't see their pathway to not just winning against Ohio State, but to really even being a particularly elite team.
Yeah, I just don't think there's not anything about their passing game either. It's really just mesh concepts and a lot of crossing patterns, and that's it. Ohio State and Jim Knowles can defend that with almost ease. I think. I don't think Michigan has enough dudes to really move the ball on them effectively through the pass and score on them through the pass.
Yeah,
analysis. Just throwing the word dudes out there. Analysis.
Dudes and dogs.
Yeah,
just dogs being dogs.
It sounds so much weirder when Liam says it. I don't know why.
Because I tried to do an imitation of you doing it.
Sorry, I say dog differently than everybody else.
I don't know, man. I don't know what else to say. I don't know.
I think that means it's a good place to end it.
But that's sad.
How's it sad? I thought this was a very fun podcast.
It was. I'm going to go have a Snicker salad now.
I'm going to go have some tater tot hot dish and cottage cheese.
I'm going to try a steak for the first time.
Black olives. I like those.
Well, I'll have a very normal Thanksgiving dinner. Thank you very much. Although I will say my wife is vegetarian, so we will also have a tofurkey at the table. So if we want some weird stuff tossed in, we got that too.
Funky, is that what that's called? I've never heard that before. That's completely gone over my head my entire life. That is fascinating.
I've never tried one before. I've never even seen one before, I don't think. But we'll see how it goes this year. We'll see if it becomes a tradition after this year.
A true college football fan watches the Egg Bowl, watches Mike Leach versus Lane Kiffin just munching on some tofurkey.
Absolutely. I'm sure that they've definitely had that at any point anywhere in the state of Mississippi. I'm sure that Mississippi is just overflowing with tofurkey.
Tofurkeys and turduckens.
At State Fair soon enough, you'll have deep fried tofurkey.
I'm sure it's there already.
Oh gosh, probably, yeah.
There's fried everything.
All right, man. That'll do it for this week 13 preview. Off the rails at times, but whatever. It's good vibes. It's good vibes. We appreciate y'all for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, follow us, and leave a good rating on Apple and Spotify. And we appreciate y'all. Comment below what you're looking forward to in week 13. And thank you so much to Shehan. His Twitter has been on the screen for an hour and a half now. If you haven't followed, that's on you. That's poor. That's poor. So please do that. And yes, we thank you so much. Thank you, Shehan, for joining us. And we'll see you on the next one.